everyone, my name is Chloe Meadows, and today I'm going to be doing my Great Leaders presentation on Steve Jobs. Okay, so what am I going to be talking about today? I'm going to give you an introduction to Mr. Jobs. I'm going to be talking about his leadership competencies and effectiveness, his leadership powers, his successes and failures, why he was a great leader, and then a review, my references, and closing. So by the end of this PowerPoint, I want you to realize why he was able to think different and cause others that he worked with to be able to think different and really transform the market of technology. So background, he was born in 1955. He was actually given up for adoption by his biological parents, and he was adopted by Clara and Paul Jobs. His dad was a machinist and his mom was an accountant. His mom actually taught him to read by kindergarten, and then his dad taught him how to work on little electronics. He's actually taken to the ER several times for like hurting himself, ingesting poison. So he was always very adventurous, trying to figure things out. He actually withdrew from college because he was just really bored. He felt like he wasn't learning anything. So he started working for Atari as a video game designer when he withdrew from college. And then when he was 21 years old, him and Steve Wozniak created Apple Computer Inc. in the family garage. So as you can see here, this is Steve Jobs and then this is Steve Wozniak. So we were talking about Zinger and Folksman's 16 competencies, and we were identifying 2 of them that our leader did really well. So the first one that Steve Jobs did a really good job at was championing change. So we'll get back into a little background a little bit more, but Steve originally, was with Apple, and then he left for a little bit. He kind of got pushed out, but Apple was really on the brink of bankruptcy, and he came back in and he completely started everything over, and like it says, when he returned to Apple in '97, the company was a mess. He streamlined Apple's production line, he cut unnecessary models, really got everything back in line and started focusing on innovation. And that innovation is a lot of what we have today, which you probably have in your hand right now. An iPhone, an iPad, an iPod, a MacBook computer. And so Apple became one of the most valuable companies in the world today. So just the iPhone, which this is one of the very first models, it becomes one of the most famous smartphones that we use today. And then one of the other competencies that he does really well is inspiring and motivating others, which this is kind of a controversial one because Steve Jobs could be known to be very brutally honest, and he would really push his workers. And so some people say he pushed them too hard, but others say that he did a very good job at this, pushing them to their limit in order to get them to perform at the best of their abilities. So his passion, his vision, and his insistence on excellence pushed his team to achieve groundbreaking innovations. So he really demanded, he set the bar extremely high. He demanded a sleek, intuitive design and revolutionary touchscreen interface. And despite immense pressure and technical challenges, his relentless drive inspired Apple engineers to create a product that changed the smartphone industry forever. And we'll talk about that later on, how we went from, a little phone that we literally had a keyboard for, to the phones that we have today that are just, all touchscreen. And you can see him here with his team, and another picture of him here working with his team and having them, listen to what he was saying. Yeah, so here we have this. So we're talking about different types of power. So one of the types of power that he harnessed well was expert power, which is the power of knowledge. And so I chose the development of the iPhone to really focus as an example for this type of power. So in 2007 is when really the development of the iPhone came out. It was very famous, when he got up there and gave the speech about the iPhone. But Jobs had an unparalleled understanding of design, user experience, and market trends. So he insisted on a multi-touch interface rather than a physical keyboard like this, like the BlackBerry, the Nokia, where you literally had to type. He insisted that no, we're not doing that, we're doing something different, like the Think Different slogan, and that changed the game completely. Even though the engineers on the team were like, look, that's never going to work. We just can't do that. He said, no, we're going to make it work. So the iPhone's design set a new industry standard, disrupting competitors like BlackBerry and Nokia. Another type of power that he really harnessed was informational power, which is the power to share insights. So, you think about Steve Jobs, he did a really good job with the iPhone, but he also did a really good job with the iPod and iTunes. And not only that, it changed the game for the music industry, because at the time, the music industry was really struggling with piracy and declining sales. So Jobs came up with this idea that we'll come up with the iTunes and it'll create entirely digital music ecosystem. So Jobs convinced record labels that selling music digitally through iTunes for 99 cents per song would be the future. And as we know now, that really took off. Most of us either have Apple Music or Spotify, Amazon Music, something like that. We're not listening to CDs anymore. We're not, putting in USB drives to listen to music. Almost everyone is listening to music on their phones. So by articulating a clear vision of how digital music distribution would be both legal and profitable, he persuaded an entire industry to shift its business model. So not only was he, a foreplayer in the technology of, like the iPhone and things like that, but he also affected the music industry as well. So all leaders, they obviously have their successes, they also have some failures. So in the beginning, the Macintosh computer did have some issues. And then in 1985, he also did get ousted from Apple, which I talked about earlier. He kind of got pushed out. So in the mid-1980s, Jobs left the development of Macintosh. It was a revolutionary but expensive computer. It was during the time that they were really focusing on working on personal computers, also called PCs. Because of his obsession with perfection and refusal to listen to feedback, it was really difficult to make it cost effective to the average consumer. So sales struggled, he clashed with the Apple's leadership, and then the CEO at the time, John Sculley, it really forced Steve Jobs to resign at the time. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of controversy with the way that Jobs managed his people, and he was known for micromanaging and kind of intimidating his employees. That he's been said to belittle them. So at times he had a lack of emotional intelligence, and really just that focus on perfectionism could really make him, hard to get along with sometimes. But on the success side, we have the revival of Apple. So like I said, when he came back to Apple in 1997, he really changed the game. The company was really struggling. They were on the brink of bankruptcy, and he completely brought them back. They took them from a struggling company to one of the most profitable companies in the country, in the world, really. His ability to identify market trends and to simplify Apple's product line really was able to allow for the launch of iconic products like the iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad. Like I said, he was often demanding, brutally honest, but his passion really inspired the employees to perform at their best, and he was really good at motivating his teams, even though sometimes he could be a little hard on them. Also, sometimes people don't know, he actually bought Pixar from George Lucas, and that was around the time that Toy Story was being produced. And so since he was, also kind of doing some things with Apple, he had a more hands-off leadership approach with Pixar, which was actually really good for that company. It actually helped Pixar flourish into a really great animation studio. So in review, some accomplishments that Steve Jobs had: he revolutionized the PC industry, personal computer industry. He revived Apple from near bankruptcy. He created the iPod, which transformed the music industry, like we talked about. He invented the modern smartphone. The majority of people on the planet are probably using an iPhone right now. He led the tablet revolution with the iPad. And he mastered branding and marketing and redefined retail with the Apple Store. And then why is he a great leader? He's a champion of change. He had expert power, and he was a visionary thinker. He was able to share that vision with his employees and get them to buy into it. He had inspirational leadership. He had high standards and perfectionism, and like we said, sometimes that could be a bit of a downside, but overall, like I said, his employees were able to buy in. And effective storytelling and communication, that really helped him when he was able to convince the music industry to buy into iTunes. And then just resilience and learning from failure. He had his setbacks. He literally got pushed out of the company that he co-founded. Do you know how bad that must have hurt his feelings? And then he came back and saved it. I mean, that's pretty amazing. Then one of his most famous sayings is stay hungry, stay foolish. And I think that's a really good saying that, even when you mess up, keep coming back. And then here are my references. Thank you guys for watching.